जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Nitai Gauranga Jaya, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga Jaya, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Gaura Hare, Jaya Sachinandana, Gaura Hare, Gaura 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 Hare, Jaya Sachinandana, Gaura Hare, Jaya Sachinandana, Gaura Hare, Jaya Jagannath Swami, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath Swami, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Kishore Kishori, Jaya Kishore Kishori, Kishore Kishori, Jaya Kishore Kishori, Kishore Kishori, Jaya Kishore Kishori, Kishore Kishori, Jaya Kishore Kishori. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शताष्ट श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी जगत गुरु शील प्रभुपाद की नित्य लीला प्रविष्णु ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शताष्ट श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी महाराज शील प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ षट गोस्वामी इसकी प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री गिरि गोवर्धन की श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की द मोस्ट मर्सिफुल लॉर्डशिप श्री श्री किशोर किशोरी की परम करुणा श्री श्री गौर निताय की श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र महारानी की गंगा माई यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की शिल प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की युगधर्म श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की श्री हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की समावेत भक्त वृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladadadayine Hiranya Kashipur Vakshahaya Shiratanka Nakalaye Vito Nasimho Parato Nasimho Yato yatho yami tato nasimho. Bahe nasimho, hridaye nasimho. Bahe nasimho, hridaye nasimho. Narasimha madim sharanam prapadhe. Tava kara kamala vare nakha madbhuta sundha. Dalitha hiranya kashipu talu bhenga. Keshavadhita narhari rupa jai jagadish hare. Jaya jagadish hare. Jai jagadish hare. Hare nakha madbhuta sudha. Dalitha hiranya kashipu keshavadhita narhari rupa jai jagadish hare. Jaya jagadish hare. Jai jagadish hare. Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev. Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. सुने सुने भगवान की, लाभ महाराज की.
Please repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much for joining us for our Sunday Feast program. On behalf of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining. Is there anybody here for the very first time? Please come up. We have a small gift for you. Thank you, and we hope to see you here more often. Today's Sunday Feast lecture will be delivered by His Holiness Romapada Maharaj. Maharaj doesn't need any introduction. Please join me in welcoming him with a loud Hari Bol. Hari Bol! Also this week, on next Saturday, which is 28th, our monthly Sankirtan MSF will take place. It starts at 10 o'clock. Normally we assemble here. And then we go out for Harinam and distributing Lord Chaitanya's message through Prabhupada books over the town. So please, it's a very good experience. Those who have done this, they would like to do it again and again. So please do join us, and if you could bring your friends or family members with you, please do bring them. After the prasad, after the program, after the festival, we come back to the temple, and prasadam is served to all the participants. Thank you so much. And now please make sure that your cell phones are switched off. If your children are not taking part in the Sunday school program, they should be, please take care of them so that they're not running around or making noise. And let's make an aisle here for those who want to come up for darshan. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Wait. Yeah, it's good.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Madhava Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopi Jana Madhava Girivardhari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari BBC Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Braja Janaran Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Braja Janaran Jamuna Thira Vanachadi Jamuna Thira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivijagacharya Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Sri Kishore Kishori Ki Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Samveda Bhaktavrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Do auto keystone. Yeah. Okay, good. How many, I missed the question earlier he asked us how many are the first time visitors, but here's a second question. How many of you are kind of new? Okay. For those of you that are kind of new, you're one of those that put your hand up. So I'm speaking, I'm going to introduce the topic for the kind of new folks. Okay? Here's the topic. This is one of a photo, or painting rather, an image of a painting of one of our members of our disciplic succession. What does that mean? There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says to Arjuna, very first verse of the 4th chapter, where Krishna says that the teaching that he's imparting to Arjuna is really, really ancient. It's nothing new. It's something that was taught long, long ago by Krishna. What's the number in the purport? 4,320,000,000, something like that, years ago? Krishna taught to the sun god, and to Vivaswan, and Vivaswan to his son, Manu, and Manu to his son, Ikshvaku, and like that, disciplic succession was carried on. And then when the disciplic succession was nashta, or broken, the science was lost. So Krishna said to Arjuna, I'm going to now teach this to you again, as I taught it to the sun god 4,320,000,000 years ago. In fact, that teaching goes back further to, in our disciplic line, to the firstborn living being, according to the Vedic literature, Lord Brahma, who was the engineer, or the contractor that built the universe according to the Lord's plan. And Brahma taught to his son Narada, Narada to Vyas, Vyas to Madhvacharya, and in an unbroken line of disciplic succession unto today. So in that line is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. For those of you that are relatively new, look on the altar on the left-hand side, and you'll see in the front a figure or a murti of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, the same person who's back here, is on the altar over here on the left. And to our right, or to his left, is his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta, and then his spiritual master, Gaur Kishore, and his spiritual master, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like that. So in the mid-1800s, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born. And I'd like to describe something about his life and his contributions. Approximately 400 years before Bhaktivinoda Thakur is when Lord Chaitanya, who those of you that are kind of new, his form is behind the two in the front on the left altar, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. Lord Chaitanya came around the same time that Columbus was trying to find out if the earth was round or flat. He was trying to sail west from Europe to get to India, to get to where the spices and the valuable things that that they used to go the Mediterranean route. He thought he could go the other way, and bumped into America, and got credit for 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and he found out the world was round, not flat. So around the same time, Lord Chaitanya appeared, and he was distributing love of God very magnanimously and very liberally through the chanting of the holy name. Those of you that were here during the chanting of the holy name, you've had some experience of that process. And around 525 years ago, from this year, more or less, Lord Chaitanya appeared and gave this chanting of Hare Krishna and the other names of God, along with teachings of a life of devotion to God, according to the Vedic wisdom. Vaishnava teachings of devotion to God, exclusive devotion to God, unmixed with anything of self-interest, simply the satisfaction and the interest of the beloved, the supreme love, divine love, love of God, through the means of chanting of the holy name. So over 350, 400 years, those teachings and the practice had kind of faded. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a visionary, and you'll hear me speak that way again and again in the course of this little presentation. He was a visionary. He envisioned not only the revival of this chanting of the holy name, according to scripture, Vedic scripture, it's the chanting of the holy name is the primary means of awakening our love of God, of achieving spiritual perfection in this life, a teaching that's not unfamiliar to all traditions of the world, all religious traditions of the world. Hallowing God's name, praising God's name, singing and chanting the name and the glories of God. So directly, Lord Chaitanya taught that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wished to revive it. In a period of time in India's history, when it was practically at the peak of British rule, British occupancy, where in order to systematically, Lord Macaulay spoke in the British Parliament. He was sent by the British to go study India. He said there's only one way to rule India, and that's to break the faith that people have in their religious tradition. We can do that, we can rule India. He made a public proclamation in the British Parliament. So that became the policy of the British, where everything Indian was backwards, and everything British and European was quality. And the intellectuals of India at the time bought into it. They helped the British. That's how they got their posts in universities. They supported the idea that everything European was brilliant and everything from the Indian teachings were backwards. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born in such an intellectual family. For those of you that are from India, he was born in a Brahmin family in Calcutta, with a family that was very wealthy and aristocratic. His father was a vast landholder and was a staunch Vaishnava Brahmin. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur was going to school, his classmates were the Tagore family, as in Rabindranath Tagore and his brothers. That was his classmates. That was the milieu in which he grew up as a young man. He was a brilliant scholar amongst his peers, and just the context, as the teachings of Lord Chaitanya had faded, what he had been introduced to in religious teachings of India, in Bengal, those of you that are from India, you'll know what I'm about to say, very strong worship of Durga and Kali and various forms of Devi. And when Bhaktivinoda Thakur started reading the European literature, Western thought of philosophers and teachings of Christianity, he wrote in his autobiography, I like this teaching of one God much better than this other one. It just seemed more natural to me to worship one supreme God from whom everything comes and observe principles of tolerance and simplicity and purity and compassion, and it just resonated so much more with me than these other things that I had come across. It wasn't until he was in his mid-30s, now this is maybe for any of us in the room to think about, it wasn't until his mid-30s that he came across a book that was the biography of Lord Chaitanya's life, called Chaitanya Charitamrita, because printing presses were just getting going. So they weren't abundantly available. And so, just to give some idea, because his father died when he was young, he was raised by his uncle, and then later he met his grandfather, who lived in Orissa, south of Calcutta. And his grandfather was something of a mystic, and his grandfather told him the day that he was going to die, it was going to be some few days later, I'm going to die on this day, and I want you to promise me. He made certain promises. One of them was to go to all the holy places of Orissa. At that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was something like 17 when his grandfather died. So he went following his grandfather's recommendation, and later on, those visits to those holy places and temples in Orissa, which are many, many, he wrote a book, one of his 100 books in his lifetime. Now, a little pause. Anybody that's been to college and had to write a term paper, what to speak of, a master's thesis or PhD thesis, what to speak of a book. Ever think of writing a book? Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote 100 books. 100 books. He was prolific. When he graduated from college, because his father was gone, there was a friend of the family who was also an aristocratic, wealthy man. He gave him a position in a business, like a managing position. And one of the first things to illustrate the character of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of the first things he did was, in looking over the bookkeeping, he saw that the business made an error in terms of one of the customers. They overcharged the customer by something. So he went to the customer and said, "We've overcharged you, here's your money back." And when the owner heard that the manager did that, he said, I think you have the wrong profession. You should become a teacher or something like that. You shouldn't be in business. It's not suited to you. His character was upstanding, outstanding and upstanding. One of his first books he wrote when he was still in high school. And then he wrote some other, just like a fiction book, a story, but about a person searching and so on. And in the course of time, he became a teacher, then he became involved in appointed posts in the British government as magistrate. And by the time 10 years had passed, he was in the highest appointed position in the entire British government in the judicial system, something they never, I'll repeat, they never put an Indian person in such a position. But they put him in such a position because he was so just and so good and so qualified that whatever decisions he made, people would accept. Here's a picture of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his the uniform that he went to court in. You can see at the top he's wearing his neck beads, and on his forehead he wore tilak, and sitting in the High Court judge's bench within the period of 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon, he accomplished what normal judges would do in a week. He was writing the decision as he was sitting on the bench because he had such acumen that he could understand the situation quickly, and he would write it from the bench and read his decision. One of the positions that he achieved or was given the responsibility for was in Jagannath Puri as a high court judge. And one of the first assignments, this is a little story, but it gives an indication of his character. He's newly arrived in Jagannath Puri, and it's actually 3 things. And one of the first assignments was the British ruler of the area, a big area, heard about a mystic yogi who was causing ferment or rebellion against the British government. So that was of concern for the British government. They gave him the assignment, bring the person to justice. Means put the person in jail for rebellion against the British government. His name was Bishika Sain, and he had mystic powers. I mean, he could make fire come out of his eyes. He would shake his long matted locks, and fire would come out of his hair. And people would go, "Wow, cool. You're something special." And he then was claiming a number of things. One of them was that he was Vishnu. He was an incarnation of Vishnu or Krishna, and his friend was Ananta or Balaram. And he had advented into this world to drive out the British out of India. That was popular. So he had lots of followers, and he taught stories from the Puranas about Rasalila. And many of the ladies, because this was his ashram, his residence was outside Puri, so many wealthy people would go to see the yogi that could do mystic things and tell nice stories, and he was Vishnu. So after some time, he began polluting the ladies that came to see him. And the men in Puri, complained, to the government, do something. The government was less concerned about that than they weren't his claims that I'm going to drive the British out. So that was the scene. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, hearing this command from the British government, asked the police force, go and arrest him, bring him here so we can put him under trial. And they said, no, we're afraid. He's mystical. He could destroy our family and destroy the whole of Puri, and we don't want to go. A fearless police force, we don't want to go. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur went with the police and confronted Bhishika Sen and said, my dear sir, can you tell me, is it true what you say about the British government and about your being an incarnation of Vishnu? And he said what he had to say, something haughty and challenging, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, well, I want to bring you to Puri and bring all this matter to trial. And he shook his head and fire came out of his hair, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I'm not, these mystic powers don't intimidate me at all. You're claiming to be God when you're a living entity. This is the greatest offense against the personality of Godhead, and you'll be put to shame for this. Come with me. And he grabbed him by his arm. And the police then, feeling a little more courage, they stood by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was a Brahmin, by the way, not a Kshatriya, but fearless. And then Bhishika Sen said, this is one of my leelas. I'll go with you. So he went to Puri, and he was put in jail awaiting his trial. So he was fasting every day. He ended up fasting for something like some number of days, 15 days, 16 days, something like that. And he hurled the challenge from his jail cell, saying that if Bhaktivinoda Thakur continues to pursue this trial, then his family will all die of fire, because he somehow had some connection with fire. So his daughter contracted a very severe fever, fire. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wife said, it's not worth the life of our daughter, let this man go. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, one who claims that he is God, I'm not going to let the man go. He is to be punished. So as the trial was going on, the man was continuing to fast, and he said, as he was walking out of the courtroom one day, you will also get fever. And sure enough, Bhaktivinoda Thakur contracted a very severe. By the way, the daughter recovered from her fever. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, down to the minute when he was writing from the court bench the decision in his hand trembling, and he read out the decision that he should be placed in jail for some number of years. As he was being taken from the courtroom, the government officer in charge of putting him back in his jail cell had a big pair of scissors. And he cut off his long hair. And when he cut off his long hair, yogis somehow store their power in their hair. So he collapsed on the floor in the courtroom. And within 2 or 3 days, he died. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was fearless. Not foolish, but fearless. There was another situation. When he came into Puri, he had responsibility for the temple. And those of you from India, especially those who have visited the Jagannath Puri temple, there's a lot of politics connected with a big thing like that. They had diminished the standard of offerings to Lord Jagannath. He insisted that they return to what formerly had been done. He personally saw to it, amidst all of the whatever resistance amongst the people that like to resist improving things. And it was restored. Then he found out that the king of Puri was embezzling money from the treasury of Lord Jagannath. So how to deal with that one? He personally spoke to the king and said, he didn't say you're guilty of embezzling from Jagannath. He was very diplomatic. He said, I would like you to pay for the offerings. Take personal charge of paying from your own pocket, paying for the offerings for some period of time that would make up the amount of money that was missing. And the king knew he got his hand in the cookie jar and he was caught. But he felt revengeful. So he hired 30 brahmanas to perform a yajna for 30 days, the end of which would kill Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Very mean. On the 30th day, the son of the king died. And he had a little uh-oh experience. He realized that he had made a great offense to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he came and personally apologized to him and told him, disclosed to him what he had planned to do, and as a result, his own son had died. And I recognize you're a great saintly personality. There's more. He's an amazing person. Before he went to Puri, I like talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Before he went to Puri, he was in a smaller place where there was a big banyan tree, really big, and people used to go and worship the tree because it was said that there was a ghost in the tree, and if they didn't propitiate or worship the ghost, then they would have problems in their family, so they'd go make offerings to the ghost. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur came to that place as a judge. He wasn't in charge of people worshiping trees. He had some money, so he he engaged a brahmana. Here's some compensation, here's some donation for you. Please just sit under the tree and read Srimad Bhagavatam verse by verse. So the Brahmin was happy to receive some financial assistance and sat under the tree and read Srimad Bhagavatam verse by verse. And when he reached the final verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th canto, 18,000 verses later, persons were assembled in the area and they witnessed that a branch of the tree towards the very top broke. A voice of the ghost spoke and said, all glories to Bhaktivinoda, because by hearing this message of Srimad Bhagavatam, I've now been freed from this curse and I will go away and no one will be disturbed again. Haribol. He had implicit, besides being fearless, he had implicit faith in the scripture and implicit faith in abiding by truth, implicit faith in acting by proper codes of conduct, like he did with the king. Here's another. When he was in Jagannath Puri, he would regularly give discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the sacred scriptures that he relished very much. And it was for those of you who've been to Puri, it was in the Jagannath Ballabh Gardens. Very nice place. And in the back area, persons would come and hear from the chief magistrate of Puri the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he had quite a crowd. But there was one sadhu who was a resident of Puri and very well-respected sadhu who started to criticize Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said things, not to him but to others, to discourage them from going to hear from him. He doesn't wear neck beads. At that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not initiated, and the practice that he followed was he didn't wear neck beads and didn't have tilak, and he's a householder with 10 children. speaking that message with which Shukadeva Goswami, a lifelong renunciate, is speaking. What is his qualification? So he went, speaking like this, here and there and here and there. And he contracted cholera. And it went on for days and days, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur heard about this. He knew about the, whatever you want to call it, bad-mouthing or fault-finding or criticism coming from the sadhu, but he wasn't disturbed by that. He was concerned about his health. So he went to see the sadhu and prescribe some medicine that would reduce his fever and then the cholera disease following that. And the sadhu followed it. And then when he recovered, he became a fast friend of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He fell at his feet, a householder with 10 children, a renunciate sadhu, respecting him. I made this great mistake. I didn't recognize your spiritual quality and I was speaking badly against you. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I know. But why didn't you wear neck beads and tilak? He said, I haven't found my spiritual master yet. And so from him I will receive my tilak and my neck beads and my Ishtade, my worshipable deity. Until that time comes, I'm not qualified. That was at least the standard that Bhaktivinoda Thakur kept. By the way, Srila Prabhupada didn't maintain that same standard. But the integrity of Bhaktivinoda Thakur was amazing. Towards the end of his life, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was living in Calcutta for a little while, a British government officer, forget his name, Ravan Shaw or something like that, came to see, he called for Bhaktivinoda Thakur to visit him. That there's the Reuters building. Anyone here from Calcutta? Reuters building? So he had his office there. So he called for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, he came downstairs, outside, with a garland, and received him with dignity and respect. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very surprised, because that's not normally what happens in the Reuters building. It's the other way around. And he brought him into his room and sat him down and said, I'm an elderly man, soon I'm going to die, and I want to relieve myself and seek forgiveness for the wrong things that I have done. I made a plan to kill you. Because I saw you're dangerous. For British rule, you're too good. You hold the faith of the people more than the British. And so I made a plan to kill you. It didn't work. He didn't spell out the details, and please forgive me, because I'm going to die. I don't want to die with this sin and stain against me. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, by this acknowledgement, surely the Lord will forgive you for your misdeeds. And he wrote in his biography, I was very surprised. Because the man was a noble man, but having such low conduct, and then later not wanting to have to pay for it. Because he was so strong and clear, persons that were not pure were a little threatened by his purity. So now a little bit of some of his contributions. In addition to the 100 books, he gave the world a pure devotee son. Of his 10 children, one of them was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He realized and wrote writings like this, that this age of Kali is so disturbed with corruption and degradation. In order to change things once again, it's going to require a great personality. He prayed to Lord Vishnu that a ray of Lord Vishnu would come. So as a son, he received that ray of Vishnu. When his son was born, his umbilical cord was wrapped around his shoulder like a Brahmin's thread. And when it came time for his grain ceremony, those of you that are from India, you know this one, around 6 months' time, it was Jagannath Rath Yatra time. The Jagannath Rath Yatra cart stopped and wouldn't move for a day and a half. right in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. So the wife of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhagavati Devi, being the wife of the chief magistrate, had access to bring her child before Lord Jagannath and placed him before Lord Jagannath to do the grain ceremony. And when she placed the child there, the garland of Jagannath fell and circled right around the child. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur took this. This is a sign. This is a special child. And so he gifted to the world a son and trained him in all respects, in spiritual standards and practical affairs of life. He taught him how to, in time of printing presses became popular, or accessible at least. So he trained his son in how to publish literatures, how to do editing, how to do everything involved in book publication, which his son would later use to spread love of God in his lifetime. He gifted to the world restoring of the places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Navadvip. While he was living in Puri, he very much desired to go to Vrindavan, the land of Krishna. As he was going to Vrindavan, the land of Krishna, literally by train, he had a dream. And in his dream, Lord Chaitanya appeared and said, "Please come to my place. Please come to Navadvip and make your residence there and disclose to the world my pastime places." So he then went back to Puri and put in a request for a transfer of his job from Puri to the Navadvip area, and they told him, "No, you're too good." He requested several times and they kept getting a no, and finally he said, "I quit." They said, "Okay, we'll give you a transfer." Wasn't exactly, but close to that. So he then was posted in Krishnanagar. And Krishnanagar is in the area of the Nadia district. Bhaktivinoda Thakur selected as his home a place that was on the other side of the Jalangi River, one of the tributaries of the Ganges, which he revealed was the very same place where Lord Nityananda had resided when he was establishing his programs of giving the holy name to the people of the village life in Bengal. The British valued him so much they built a railroad train from his house to Krishnanagar. It was one of those narrow gauge trains, like old narrow gauge trains. Started from his home and went to Krishnanagar just to get him to work. Of course, there were people that lived along the way, and it was of service to those people also. That's how much he was respected by the British government. From that place, he began writing many of his books. One of those books was Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. And for those of you that are relatively new, what that means is he was describing the places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Navadvip, the glories of Lord Chaitanya and his pastimes. It's a very, very detailed book, describing a visit to Navadvip by Jiva Goswami, who is also pictured on our altar on the right side. When he visited Navadvip, Lord Nityananda took him on a tour of all the places, and it's described in this book, Lord Chaitanya's pastime places and that exchange with Jiva Goswami and Lord Nityananda. He understood that the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya was different. How much time do I have? 15 minutes. Where's Radharaman? 15 minutes? Huh? Okay. So, those of you that are from India, you know how to say this nicely, how people who have charge of temples are very territorial. So the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya was in question by our great Acharya Bhaktivinoda, because according to the literature describing Lord Chaitanya's life, here's the Ganges. Lord Chaitanya's home was on the eastern side of the Ganges. But what was being accepted during the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur was on the western side of the Ganges. The town of Navadvip is on the western side of the Ganges, and it was a relatively new town, or now small city, maybe about 200 years old, but Lord Chaitanya was 500 years before. So it didn't correlate. Very new city on the wrong side of the river. So he wasn't convinced that was the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. He began reading scriptures that described, Ananta Samhita describes, that after Lord Chaitanya's departure, the course of the Ganges would shift, and that which was Navadvip would be under the Ganges, like in the Ganges mud, underneath the river. And after some few hundred years, the Ganges would shift back. After the Ganges shifted back, this new Navadvip city was built. People saying, this is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya over here. Come on over and support our temple. He was convinced that wasn't right. Something is wrong. So he searched and inquired and studied maps and read the scriptures and prayed. And one evening he had a vision from Rani Dharmshala in Navadvip with one of his sons standing on the veranda on the roof. He saw a huge luminous temple in the middle of a rice field. It was a vision, because there was no temple there. But he saw. And he marked the spot, and later he went to the very place and inquired from the local elder sadhus there, this is the place that I saw. He said it was a piece of land that the Muslim farmers considered to be useless. It wouldn't grow rice. It wouldn't even grow eggplant. It would only grow tulsi. Useless. So, but the sadhus there said, no, it's not useless. It's sacred. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur understand that's the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Through scripture and through this vision that he had. So he brought his spiritual master, Jagannath Das Babaji, who at that time was 120 years old. He was so old he couldn't walk. He was being carried in a basket because they didn't have, go-karts and things like that at that time. And when he reached the spot, Jagannath Das Babaji, who couldn't walk, jumped out of the basket, leaped in the air and said, Gauranga, Gauranga, this is it. This is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, very bravely, and I'll say it bluntly, risking his life, because he was going against the monetary interests of the people of Navadvip who said the birthplace is over there, he's saying it's over here. He went door to door in Navadvip and invited people to give 1 rupee. In other words, in principle, accept that this is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he explained to people door to door why she should be accepted as the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, when his son was digging the foundation for yet a larger temple, deep, deep, deep down, they found a deity that was worshipped by Lord Chaitanya's father, Jagannath Mishra, like archaeological evidence. That was the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's a great contribution of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that's why I'm speaking about it, that he discovered the actual birthplace of Mahaprabhu, and based upon the scriptures then established from that place radially outward, where many other places were the house of Advaitacharya and Srivas Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit, Murari Gupta, and the places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes were established by him. And therefore he is given the title, the seventh Goswami. The significance of that is the immediate followers of Lord Chaitanya, were given the service of establishing Krishna's places of pastime in Vrindavan, and he did the same of Lord Chaitanya's places of pastimes in Navadvip. And here's three more of the glories of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His range of, not only he wrote 100 books, but his range of writing was from the simplest of literature to the most complex of literature, and everything in between. He wrote books in Sanskrit. He wrote books in Bengali. He wrote books in English. For people who were literate, he composed songs, because they would just hear the songs and then sing the songs, and they liked music. Bengalis are really, really good at music, most of them. Some can't carry a tune, but mostly they can. And they learned the philosophy, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya through songs. One of his books was a 62-song book teaching the process of surrender, sharanagati, in the form of songs. Beautiful songs, very, very lovely songs, describing how to become fully sheltered in Krishna through surrendering to Him, and the obstacles in surrendering to Him, and how to overcome the obstacles in surrendering to Him. And even if you don't know Bengali, the songs are so sweet. What to speak of if you know the meaning and appreciate the message. And that's how he taught. So he established a program called Nama Hata. Hata means marketplace. So he distributed the holy name through gatherings of people, one village elder, and many people in the village would learn from that village elder the songs and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. That's another lifetime's worth of work. Something like 600 Namahatas he established. Maybe 2 or 3 people can do that in a lifetime, along with everything else. He envisioned the teachings of Lord Chaitanya going all over the world. He took steps to see that. And why we're here today in ISKCON Chicago has to do with Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision of giving not only Lord Chaitanya's teachings to the intellectuals of his time and the people in the villages and everybody in between in India, but all around the world. He was a grand visionary. He wrote, "The day will come." This is when there was just rice paddies in Navadvip. The day will come when people from all over the world, and he named from Russia, from China, from Africa, from America, and from Europe, they will come together on the streets of Navadvip and sing together, "Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana." That was his vision, and he took steps to achieve it. In the year 1896, he wrote a little booklet at his own expense, published it, and sent it to universities all over the world. Free copies, please put it in your library. The Life and Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the Life and Precepts. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his life and precepts. Because his vision was at least the intellectuals, the university professors should know. So he sent it to the professors and to the libraries. Later copies of that were found by ISKCON devotees at McGill University in Toronto and one in Bangkok and places all over the world. He saw Lord Chaitanya's message going all over the world, and he imparted that vision to his son, Bhaktisiddhanta, who imparted that vision to Srila Prabhupada and his followers, and here we are because of that. The Worldwide Association, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, owes its heritage to this visionary, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One time, I was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur. There were about 25, 30 devotees. Prabhupada was walking in the fields, because then it wasn't as developed as it is now. And he was on a glorifying Bhaktivinoda Thakur mood, talk. And it was as if he had 10 mouths. He was just speaking Bhaktivinoda Thakur's enthusiastic glories. And it was clear that Prabhupada had such love and appreciation and respect for him. So there was a little pause. And then Prabhupada, somebody said, Prabhupada, he had such vision. Why didn't he, during his lifetime, establish the presence of Vaishnavism by the teachings of Lord Chaitanya all over the world? And very small voice Prabhupada said, he left something for us to do. And everyone went, Jai Prabhupada. So that's something that he left for us to do meant Srila Prabhupada, and of course his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta, or the son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and similarly to us. So now the vision wasn't just all over the world, but specifically every town and village. Lord Chaitanya said, every town and village, the holy names of the Lord will be heard and chanted. So I don't think we've reached every town and village in the state of Illinois. We've reached some part of it, but he left something for us to do. So in honor of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, let us consider how we can, not just the brahmacharis that live in the temple, but those of you that are in our congregation, you live in your homes, you can also, in your town or your village or the neighborhood where you live, or all around town, take the opportunity to be an instrument of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, who is simply speaking what Lord Chaitanya said, and give people the opportunity to hear the holy name, to receive the transcendental wisdom of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, both by how you conduct your lives, so you can be nice examples of that for the people in your village or your community or your neighborhood or your place of work or whatever it is, circle in which you move, your school, your university, wherever it is that you move about. Think in a positive way how this message can be made available to others and how I can be exemplary of what those teachings say. And that will be the greatest tribute to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Well, thank you very much. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Haribo. Those of you that are relatively new, we now serve prasadam upstairs. Vegetarian meal upstairs.
Can't you do it once Thursday gets here? Huh? Can't you do that once Thursday gets here?
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare,
Well, 7:15? 7:10. I think they're near. I'm sorry? No, I'm good. It's okay.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. How you feel, man? How your body feel?
He's coming, he's coming. In the meantime, you want... When is coming? It should be.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namo Namaste Saraswati Dev Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Pasketa Dishetarte Namaste Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Sivasari Gada Bhakta Jaya Sri Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Srivasari Gada Bhakta Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu
प्रभु नित्यानंद। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mothers, bolo, sing. Mothers, bolo. Bolo, propose, bolo. Mothers, bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare That sounds sweet. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Both together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, now the high note, the same high note. Ready? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare